Hey, TWC family and friends, I wanted to take a second and to share my heart with you. It has been a busy day, and there has been a lot that's been said, both positive and negative, about my recent White House visit. Today has been one of those kinds of days. I think that I have been called everything but a child of God, and I understand why some people have responded to the news of me going to the White House the way that they did. But I wanted to take a second and to share my heart with you so that you could hopefully put my visit in its proper perspective. I also recently sent out a statement, and I hope that you would take the time to read it. But even beyond the statement, I wanted to share my heart with you. And in addition to putting the statement out there, I had an opportunity this afternoon to do a press conference at our Derby campus, and many people from the local press were there and asked me honest questions, and I sat there and allowed them to fire away any question that they wanted to ask me because I don't have anything to hide, and we're going to make that press conference in its entirety available to you. I know that there are new segments that will take bits and pieces of that press conference and use it for however they want to tell the story. But I wanted to make that entire press conference available for you so that you could hear it in its entirety. And so that will also be available. But I wanted to take a second and to share my heart about my recent White House trip. First of all, this was not my first time visiting the White House. I shared with the congregation some months ago that I was invited by the White House to really share my thoughts on a new prison reform initiative. It's a bill. It's called the First Step Act that President Trump's administration is actually trying to get fully passed. And so the first time that I went to the White House, they asked me very honestly, and I almost did not go. I was very close to not going, and I was really convicted by God that, first of all, my responsibility is to not just think about me, because the reason I almost did not go the first time was that I was thinking about me. I didn't want to be attacked. I didn't want people to think that, that I'm an apologist for Trump or anything of that nature. But then I was really convicted about, but what is this really about? Is it about you, or is it about the people who are disenfranchised and marginalized and are voiceless, particularly the people that we see every month as we serve throughout the state of Alabama in 8 different prisons? There are hundreds of people that have come to the Lord because of our prison ministry. Some of our members and even some of our dream teamers and leaders are former prisoners who gave their life to Jesus and completely turned their life around. And many of them have come to the faith and come to the Lord through our efforts at the worship center. So the first thing that the Lord did was really convict me about that. And he said, now, are you going for you? Or are you concerned about you? Or are you concerned about them? So I went. And I was brutally honest with them. I read through the bill. I actually sat down with some key leaders on this issue. I sat down with some individuals who were from a law background. In fact, some pretty high up individuals from even some previous presidential administrations I sat down with and went painstakingly through this bill. And I went to the first meeting at the White House, and I shared my heart about this bill. And I was brutally honest. And I was actually surprised because I expected them to not receive what I had to say, but they did. They received it. I sent correspondence to support a lot of the things that I said in the meeting, and they responded immediately back to me and took all of that in consideration in trying to craft this bill in its final phase. Subsequently, after that meeting, the bill went forth. The bill has passed the House. It has yet to pass the Senate. And so in light of that, I was invited back for the meeting that took place on yesterday. Now, just like the first meeting, there's not much that I knew about the context of the meeting, who was going to be in the meeting, who was not going to be in the meeting. Didn't even know going in who the other pastors were that were going to be there. The first meeting that I had at the White House, President Trump did not come into the room. There was no media allowed. And the meeting on yesterday started that way. We started meeting on the issue. President Trump came in. He shared his heart about the need for prison reform and for workforce development. And then he allowed the media to come in for a moment. And a lot of what people have taken out of context were my remarks when I talked about him caring for all people. That was not a blanket endorsement for President Trump. And many of you, if you have followed me, if you've read any of the op-ed pieces that I put out, if you've attended our service, you know that I have at times, particularly recently, been very critical about a lot of things that are happening. I have spoken about it from the pulpit. I have done interviews about those things. I've even written op-eds about it. And so when I made that statement about him caring for all people, I was talking about the fact that I'm hopeful and I'm encouraged by his administration trying to push forward the agenda for prison reform, that finally people who have been disenfranchised and marginalized, especially in the prison systems, that they can finally be ministered to and have opportunities. That basically we would no longer continue to go through life ignoring them. So that's what I meant by that statement. What's unfortunate is that people took that snippet and then ran away with it to suggest that, I've sold out or things of that nature. And that is absolutely not the case. Let me clarify a few things. Number one, I did not get and have never received any money from the Trump administration, from his campaign. That is not the case. I flew to Washington on my own dime, paid for my own flights, paid for my own hotels. I didn't go to gain anything. I went to hopefully move the needle, or at least be a part of the solution that hopefully will come forth as it relates to prison reform. Alabama is one of the worst states in our nation as it relates to prison reform. Our current prisons in Alabama are somewhere near 178% overpopulated. African Americans in America make up only 12 to 13% of the population, but we make up nearly 35% of the prison population. Our prisons are overrun with people that look just like me. And this situation is at its worst in Alabama. And so in light of that, in light of the people that we've been ministering to on a consistent basis, I really, really felt like somebody has got to say something. Part of my struggle with the way that this has been received is basically connected to the problem that I see in our country. People get so angry with one another that we won't even talk to one another. And so I've been vilified because I went, but I didn't go for me and I did not go for the president. I went to hopefully be a part of conversations that can help us take the next step forward in helping people that will never have an opportunity to go to the White House and share their plight and basically what it feels like to be forgotten about and disenfranchised. That's why I went. And that's the ethic of Christ. One of the things that I hope that you remember, there are people who said, I'm going to leave the ministry and that kind of thing. And I hate to see you go. But one of the things, if you so decide, even if you decide to continue to be a part of our family, I hope that you never forget this. I've tried to live my life in a way to not just preach the gospel, but to live it. I really believe that the greatest message we could ever preach is the one that we live every single day. And one of the things that Jesus is really clear about is the need for us to care for those that are the least, that are the left out, and those that are the forgotten. One of the things that I vehemently believe, if Jesus was walking the earth today, he would spend time with many of the people that we have forgotten about, many of the people that we have sacrificed on the altar of our political ideologies and even our egos. And I didn't want to be guilty of that. I just ministered last Sunday about the love of God. That's what my whole book, Desired by God, is about. And the radical love of God is just that. It is radical. I think it's Israel Houghton that's got a song about the reckless love of God. Because the thing about the love of God is, and I mentioned this on last Sunday, God doesn't like everything that is happening, but he still loves us. God doesn't like everything about me and my past and the mistakes I've made. He doesn't like everything about you, but he still loves us. And so I really believe that we can still help people, even if you and I don't agree 100% on every issue. I've learned that I think it's important to practice the 101% principle. And that is, find the 1% that you do agree on and give it 100% of your attention, particularly if it's going to benefit other people. So please understand, that was my heart. That was my heart. I will never, ever willingly do something to hurt you, your family, or our ministry. I want Jesus to be revealed in everything that I do and the way that I live and everything that our ministry does. And so I pray that through the vitriol and through all of the words and negative things that have been said about me, that as a family, you all would hear my heart on this issue. I am the same guy that I've always been as your pastor, the same one that's been passionate about those who are disenfranchised and marginalized, really receiving the help in the hands and feet of Jesus that we as believers are called to provide. So, in light of that, I wanted to take the time to share my heart with you. I'm also going to continue to address this in other outlets. I've written some other op-ed pieces to hopefully silence a lot of the negativity. I probably won't be able to completely do it, but I just wanted you to hear my heart on it. I want to thank those of you who have reached out to me and said, hey, we get it, Pastor. We understand your heart. Thanks, for at least having a seat at the table and, sharing, some things about those who would never be able to share their heart. That's what I tried to do. And I'm open to the fact that I don't get it right. I'm not perfect. Perhaps I could have said things better. All of that I'm open to. And I said that, and you'll see that in the press conference. But most importantly, I wanted you to understand my heart, why I said, what I was addressing when I said it, what I meant by it, but then also bigger than all of that, why I was there in the first place. So thanks for those of you that have reached out and sent positive, affirmations. For those of you that are mad with me and angry with me and think that I'm a sellout and all other kind of negative things that have been said, listen, I love you, and I pray that one day, once the anger subsides, we can have an honest dialogue about it, because I think once you hear my heart on the issue, apart from your anger and frustration, you would see that I still have your back. I always have. And at the end of the day, what I really want is I want for things to change. I would hate for us to waste a lot of time and sacrifice the needs of people who really need help because you're on one side of the fence and somebody else is on the other, and we're just yelling at each other. We have got to, at some point, get past this. I was thinking today as I was, reading a lot of the social media hate, and I was thinking about those popular bracelets that people used to wear years ago. I had one. It was the WWJD bracelet that represented what would Jesus do. And that's what I said to the Lord in my own time. Like, God, I'm getting all this negative hate. Did I do the right thing by going? Should I not have gone? And all that kind of stuff. I was just agonizing about it with the Lord, and he brought that back to my memory. What would Jesus do? And here's what I'm firmly convinced of. Jesus would do everything he could to work on behalf of the people who are marginalized and disenfranchised, who don't have any hope, who are forgotten about. And he would do it regardless of who's in the White House. That's what I really believe Jesus would do. That's what I'm trying to do. And I hope that we could do it together. So take care. The full press conference is going to be available for you. And if you haven't read my statement, it's also going to be out there. So I love you. And I hope to see some of you on Sunday as we continue this journey together. Take care.